Okay, so now we're going to be discussing restorative yoga. We talked a little bit about how yin and restorative are different, and I will repeat that little, restorative in 60 seconds of a static hold, so 1 minute in a pose affects the muscles, the muscular system. In 2 minutes of holding the pose, it affects the nervous system. In 3 to 5 minutes, the endocrine system, and then anything longer than 5 minutes starts to get into the deeper psychological effects. We start to turn in and look at the thoughts, and transformation happens on a psychological level. So restorative yoga is not only restoring the muscles and the nervous system and the endocrine and the state of our being, but it's restoring our psyche. So it's really good for those kinds of things. It is a slow practice. It's all about relaxation. It's all about activating that parasympathetic nervous system to counterbalance, how we are in the sympathetic nervous system a lot of the time in our crazy busy world. I always like to recommend Judith Lassiter. She is known she's like the queen of restorative yoga. She's known for that. So she's a really good one to follow for she's written books. She has an Instagram page that's really cool to follow. She does workshops. And so if you decide, wow, I really want to dive into restorative more, she's a good one to follow. That's her niche. So then we get into the central nervous system consists of the brain stem, the spine, and all the nerves that extend throughout your body. It is the body's communication highway and has both voluntary functions and autonomic functions. Autonomic meaning they work on their own, like automatically. Your autonomic nervous system has two parts. It has the sympathetic nervous system and it has the parasympathetic nervous system. In humans, our stress response is disrupted when trauma occurs and causes our stress response to become stuck. So that's why a lot of times when trauma happens, we loop psychologically, we loop in the mind, we replay it over and over. This is when our nervous system continues to take them through an event over and over again. In order to heal, we have to get past that initial stress response and we have to move into the rest cycle. So the more that we activate that parasympathetic nervous system, it eases a person into, more rest, digest, restore states, allowing them to move past that initial stress response. Because our world is so crazy and busy and go, 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 we're in that fight, flight, freeze, sympathetic nervous system a lot of the time. And the parasympathetic nervous system activates the rest, the digest, the restore stage, right? So a lot of times that's why we're doing restorative yoga, is to activate that parasympathetic nervous system and counterbalance all of this, Now, the sympathetic nervous system is not a bad thing. It was designed into our body for a good reason. If we are getting chased by a lion, it allows the blood to pump out into the appendages, more of like the arms and the legs, so that you can run faster. It allows, some people in situations, they've been able to pick up a car if it was on top of someone, it pumps the adrenaline and gets, so it is helpful for, states of survival and things like that. But we don't want to be there all the time, right? And so that's why we do these activities to kind of counterbalance and activate the parasympathetic nervous system. We have what's called the vagal nerve. We also have what's called the vagal tone. And the vagal tone is said to be a vibration. Now, this is the vagal nerve is the main nerve that runs throughout the entire body. So the state of this nerve and the state of this tone is super important to our health. Our body is always trying to return to the state of homeostasis. It's always trying to come back into wholeness. It's always trying to return to health. Our body is amazingly designed to keep us alive and whatnot. Our proprioceptive receptors are in our shoulders and our hips. And these are like kitty cat whiskers. So if you think about, you know, how cats sense the space of something, whether they can fit into something, they're kind of like sensory input to detect danger and things like that. So our body is even designed to detect, you know, danger. If there's danger, if we need to run, if there's danger and we need to, you know, whatnot. So shoulders and hips are huge in yoga, and these are a lot of times where we hold a lot of stress and tension because we have maybe detected danger or stress, and you know, we've held it here, like we've went into that that state of fight, flight, freeze kind of mode. And the vagal nerve also is this nerve that runs throughout the entire body. That's our main nerve. Is also a kind of acts like a kitty cat whisker. It is able to sense danger or whatnot. The vagal nerve runs from the base of the skull all the way down to the perineum, running through the entire chakra system. The vagal nerve is part of our psychic ability to sense safety outside of our body. It actually detects other people's vibrational frequencies. So how to tone the vagal nerve. So like someone who wants to improve the quality of that vagal nerve or that vagal tone, how to tone it, how to improve it. Cold showers, singing, chanting, humming, yoga, meditation, positive social engagement, breath work, prayer, massage, acupuncture, laughing, gargling, seafood has even been connected, and sunlight. Sunlight's really, really good for it too. There were 3 things that I just came across too that said what helps to reset the nervous system and also to increase cell growth and even increase brain cell growth is after a hot shower, run the cold, because your body is like, you know, and it's like it shocks the system, it resets the nervous system. So like cold plunges, ice baths, you know, those things that people do. Maybe they do the sauna and then they do the ice bath. That is one of the things that resets the nervous system. Oh, what were the other 2? I think I have it on my phone. Let me look it up real quick. Let's see. Get past it. Oh, here it is. Okay. Fasting. Fasting is another thing that, intermittent fasting, where you only eat between 12 and 6, and then you don't eat from 6 p.m. to noon the next day. This helps to shock the system and stimulate your brain to release, you know, increase brain cell growth. And then interval training, so like running up a hill and then, you know, or doing something cardiovascular. Maybe it's just for like 1 minute and then stopping and then doing it again for one, you know, you might do this for like, ideally I'd say 30 minutes. But just to kind of like crazy, you know, running, you know, get the heart pumping and then stop. But you really don't need more than that 30 minutes, but that kind of shock to the system is really good. Okay. pineal gland is located midbrain. When we focus at the tip of the nose, our optic nerve starts to stimulate the pineal gland by giving it a little squeeze. Okay, so there's a golden cord that's energetically connected between the pineal gland and the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is located kind of like low to like back part of the brain. And when the pituitary gland is activated and starts to talk to the pineal gland, so this golden cord, they start communicating and talking, starts to talk to the pineal gland and your hypothalamus gland. This is when we start to secrete what we call amrit or amrit. It's known as nectar of the gods. I notice when I go into deep states of meditation that I start swallowing a lot more, and that's when they say that that's a sign to know that you are secreting or secreting is the best word. This amrit or amrit. It's A-M-R-I-T. But this nectar of the gods is kind of like a substance that is then secreted into the body that has healing properties. There's all these benefits to it. So, focusing on the nose, doing a meditation where you're focusing on the tip of the nose is really helpful to start to do that. But even just in when you get into deep states of meditation. Now, in a restorative pose or restorative yoga, we want, of course, nice, soft music, not a lot of music with lyrics, because we don't want people to be thinking. We want them to start to go inward. We want to take away those kinds of distractions, but we want about 3 to 5 poses throughout the whole practice. We really don't want more than that. We want to stay in these poses long enough to really go deep, to encourage our students to fully relax, because sometimes people can be so wound tight that they struggle with even just sitting still, and then they struggle with even relaxing, and then to keep them there long enough that okay, now they're starting to let go, now they're starting to relax, now their mind might start to quiet, or they might be becoming aware of how busy their mind is, that kind of thing. So we only want 3 to 5 poses, and we want each pose to be 5 to 10 minutes long. And we don't want them to feel a lot of stretch. We want it to be, a little stretch is fine, depending on everybody's body is different. Some are tighter than others, right? So, some people still might feel a stretch, but it's not focused so much on stretching, it's focused on relaxing. The magic happens in the nervous system when you let the students be in the pose and they start to face themselves. They start to turn inward. You are manipulating their nervous system to strengthen their parasympathetic response. You want your shavasana to be 15 to 20 minutes long, but 7 minutes minimum. So you don't want the shavasana to be less than 7 minutes. So make sure you leave a good amount of time for a nice long shavasana. And in yin yoga, when you put them in shavasana, it's also good to go around and cover them up to make them feel like a special child being taken care of or cared for. So you might go around and wrap them up in a blanket, tuck their feet in, place an eye pillow over their head. You might give them aromatherapy or a little neck massage or neck release, or maybe a face massage. You might rub their feet. You really want them to feel nurtured and cared for. So there's 3 stages here, kind of in the progression that we want to work towards or have as a goal or intention. The first stage is relaxation. It takes an average person 15 minutes to find their way into symmetry. So between the wiggles and the releases, you might be halfway through your you might be halfway through your restorative class before people are finally starting to really get into it and let go. It might take some people that whole class for them to finally get to shavasana and be like, oh, okay, But the second stage is pratyahara. And this is withdrawing from the agitation of external stimulation. The heaviness, the lightness, the healing begins. So we're drawing away from, noises, smells, things like that. We're really starting to go a little deeper. And we're starting to go inward. And the third stage is known as ashunya. And this is no seer, where you feel some other place, also known as samadhi. Samadhi is another term that we could use, or harmony. These are all words to describe that third stage. And if people fall asleep, that's okay. Usually we say if people fall asleep, that's what their body needed. So it's okay if they fall asleep. Of course, the goal is to be so relaxed without falling into sleep. But if they fall asleep, that's okay. That's what they needed. That's what their body needed. A lot of times when they fall asleep, it's a sign of a healing taking place. Okay. So, restorative yoga, a lot of the yoga poses that you're familiar with, there's so many that you can use, whether it's a spinal twist, a pigeon pose. A pigeon pose might be, too much stress, but some people really feel like that's restorative for them. They like that, You can bring in some of those yin type poses, but make them more relaxing instead of focusing, on stretching and working on the tendons, ligaments, and joints and bones and things like that. Things like child's pose. I will say this, don't leave them in child's pose too long. A lot of times your feet will start to fall asleep, so child's pose might be more of a 3 to 5 minute, you wouldn't want to leave them there. I wouldn't say leave them there 10 minutes, but you might do a spinal twist where you're 5 minutes on one side and 5 minutes on the other. There's 10 minutes there for a spinal twist. Your forward fold, and that's another thing, props. You're going to use a lot of props. Now, there is a way to do it without props, and you'll find your way around that. But it's nice, like even in caterpillar pose, or sorry, that's a yin, in a forward fold, you would, bring in a lot of props, maybe have the blanket rolled up underneath the knees, and, you can even take a wide leg forward fold and make it restorative, any way that is really relaxed. Here you might have one blanket underneath this knee and one blanket underneath that knee, and if you might create a table, one block here, one block there, for people to like lay on. You want it to be very chill, very relaxing, nurturing. So a lot of props. I think. Do you have any questions on restorative yoga? Making a list of the poses. Yeah, you could do, things like thread the needle, you just wouldn't want it to be too like, some people can get all crazy, you want it to be very relaxing. Crocodile pose would be very restorative here. One of the things I've done is like a supine tree, where we bring the knee up, and we might put a blanket underneath the knee and cushion the knee, and then come down and rest here as we're opening up the hip, but in a gentle way. I call it like adult nap time. You want it to be really chill. Now, I have done this, and this probably isn't always recommended by a lot of people. I've read books, yogic books, philosophy books, books that are going to invoke contemplation, things like that. Some really good books would be like The Untethered Soul. One of my favorites is The Way of the Wizard by Deepak Chopra. So you might read to them. That's one of the things that I've done. I'll put them in their pose, and I'll read a chapter, and then or half a chapter.
Are you reading intentions with every pose too? I know she branded intentions.
Oh yeah, you could do that with yin or restorative. You could have like, okay, we're gonna maybe do an intention around the heart. I am love. And we'll get into that more when we start discussing like themes. The themes of our classes that we theme. You could do a whole one on chakras.
do a specific pose for the root chakra, have a affirmation for the root chakra, and then move on to a pose for the sacral chakra and have an affirmation for the sacral chakra. You know, like, so you can really get into it and be creative. But yeah, so like sometimes I'll read to them, but some places or some yogis might not say reading to them is good, because now you're getting them to think and you're distracting them. And you really want them to go into these, you know, and we'll cover when we get into yoga nidra. That's where, you know, I like restorative, where we're really relaxing, but we're also learning something new with the reading. But you don't necessarily have, you know, you might just have chill music and a lot of, you know, no talking, you know. But yeah, as we get in deeper into these subtle practices, like yoga nidra is one we'll cover next. That is, you know, of course, going to take those people into those deeper psychological states of being. So yeah, I love it. Restorative yoga is one of my favorites. Okay, so that's restorative yoga.